Good morning and welcome to IG's early morning call live on IGTV. I'm Angela Barnes. Well, coming up on this morning's show, the US dollar recorded its worst weekly performance after a softer than expected jobs report landed. Meanwhile, Ryanair's reported its half-year earnings and has forecast a record annual profit after fares soared this summer. And a couple more big US earnings as well to watch out for this week with Uber and Disney. Uber is expected to swing back to profit and Disney is seen as doubling its EPS 1 year after Bob Iger's return. Okay, well, let's kick off with volatility and take a look at the VIX this morning. So if you see on the chart here that volatility has fallen over the last week and is now at around 1656 at the moment. Well, the VIX touched a fresh 6-week low last week, reflecting easing investor anxiety. Well, that's after data showed signs of slowing US jobs growth and an uptick in unemployment, boosting hopes that the US Federal Reserve is done with its interest rate hiking campaign. Well, with 30 minutes to go until the European market opens, this is how the pre-market is looking across Europe. Let's start with the FTSE, currently up the all-session stock on the IG platform 0.13%. France's CAC 40, however, well, that's actually rather flat now. Yep, absolutely flat. And then Germany's DAX as well, 0.07% higher. So a mixed open for European markets after they closed cautiously higher on Friday. European shares did rise, as I said, on Friday, rounding up. That was a weekly rally and some strong earnings reports as well that came out. Retail stocks led the way. They were up 1.7%. Well, the higher finish also came after the Federal Reserve and Bank of England halted rate hikes for the second executive time. Well, the higher finish also withstood the drag by shipping giant Maersk after it announced 10,000 job cuts and forecast profits to come in at the low end of guidance, sending its shares down 17%. Well, let's have a look at shares in Asia Pacific overnight. Well, the Nikkei 225 finished up 2.37%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng also up 1.81%. And the S&P, Australia's ASX 200, also up 0.27%. And if we just pull up the Nikkei 225 price chart, I just want to show you something here. Well, the Nikkei share average touched more than a 1-month high today. It's tracking a Wall Street rally in the previous session, and this is with chip-related stocks leading the charge. This is back at a level you can see not seen since around the 25th of September. Gains in the precision instruments and electrical machinery and transport sectors have led shares higher. Well, this week, it will be the Reserve Bank of Australia's interest rate decision that will be in focus, and China will also release a raft of economic data that could impact global markets, including CPI, PPI, trade balance data and new yuan loans to gauge its economic trajectory. Well, let's move on to Wall Street now, because it experienced a sharp relief rally on Friday as risk-off sentiment abated following weaker than expected non-farm payrolls data. Well, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was up 0.66%, the S&P 500 up 0.94%, and the Nasdaq Composite up 1.38% on Friday. Well, mega cap tech stocks experienced a rebound with Nvidia's shares surging about 11%, suggesting a returning interest in AI stocks. And of course, there was that big AI summit last week as well. Alphabet and Microsoft stocks also rose. But let's have a look at how things are looking in early trade this morning, because they are all session stock on the IG platform. And if we look at the S&P, poised for a higher open, up 0.17%. The US Tech 100, the Nasdaq, also set for a higher open, currently up 0.17%. And Wall Street, the Dow Jones, also set for a higher open, up 0.15%. Well, whilst most major companies have now reported in the US, Disney and Uber are yet to come this week, and we'll have more on that shortly. But moving on, and let's turn to the US dollar. Let me just bring up the dollar basket chart for you. Okay, because it recorded its worst weekly performance since July as it dropped after the release of non-farm payrolls data on Friday. Well, the US economy created 150,000 jobs in October. The market had expected 180,000 job creations. The September figure was also downwardly revised 297,000 from 336,000, while the unemployment rate rose 3.9 to 3.9%. Well, if we just look at the dollar basket, it is currently up 0.12% against its peers. Has been continuing though. Earlier this morning, it's declined. Some analysts expect the weaker trend that we have seen to continue, though, through November. However, analysts at JP Morgan highlighted as well that a sustained dollar sell-off, though, needs signs of improvement in the Eurozone, China, and other regions, which is said are still tenuous. Well, moving on. And the Bank of Japan is making progress towards achieving its 2% inflation target, according to the bank's governor, but not enough to end ultra loose policy just yet. Well, he said, we're seeing more positive signs than before in corporate wage and price setting behavior, but there's still uncertainty on whether the positive cycle of inflation and wages will strengthen as we predict. Well, Ueda highlighted two risks to Japan's economic recovery: the impact of aggressive US interest rate hikes on financial markets, and China's weak growth momentum. And as noted, we will see more data out from China this week. But let's just go to the US dollar Japanese yen price chart to have a look, because last week, Bank of Japan maintained its ultra easy monetary settings last week, but tweaked its bond yield control policy. Today, you can see the currency pair gained some positive traction, snapping a 3-day long streak, currently at the 149 level, up 0.13% on the day. Okay, well, moving on as well, just to note, in Germany, factory orders data has come in and unexpectedly it rose in September by 0.2% month over month. Economists had anticipated a 1% decline. Well, also in this morning, let's move on to Ryanair's half-year profits, because it forecasts a record annual profit after fares soared this summer. Well, Europe's largest airline by passenger numbers posted after-tax profit of 2.18 billion euros, 59% ahead of its previous record for the period set last year, and better than the 2.15 euro anticipated by the 2.15 anticipated by the market. Well, traffic in the period was up as well, 11% to 105 million passengers, while fares were 24% higher than last year. Well, Ryanair now expects an after-tax profit of between 1.85 billion euros and 2.05 billion euros the year to end March. Well, let's just quickly pull up the Ryanair price chart here. And of course, we will be tracking this today. But also announced, the company also announced its maiden ordinary dividend of 400 million euros to note, and also an interim payment of 200 million euros that will be paid in February, and a final dividend of also 200 million euros in September next year. Well, from now on, Ryanair plans to return as well approximately 25% of the after-tax profit posted the previous year by way of ordinary dividend. Okay, well, let's move on to UK earnings this week, because in the UK, a few reports are lined up throughout. And this week, and here's what we're keeping across. On Tuesday, the market expects a full year earnings from Associated British Foods and a quarterly trading statement from Persimmon. On Wednesday, Marks and Spencer will update investors with its half-year report. So will ITV with its Q3 trading update. And then on Wednesday, the market expects full-year earnings from WH Smith and a Q3 report from AstraZeneca. Well, let's move on now because there's also earnings reports due from the US. Well, the bulk of the earnings season, however, is now behind us, but there are a few big names yet to report, though. On Tuesday, Uber Technologies is forecast to publish earnings of 7 cents per share. This would compare to an 18 cents loss in the same quarter last year. Revenue is expected at $9.54 billion. And over the past few weeks as well, analysts have grown increasingly bullish on the stock. We look at the Uber price chart here. Some of them upping their price target to $60 or higher. Uber's shares have posted their best weekly performance since May last week. And then if we just switch over to the Lyft price chart, well, Lyft's performance doesn't look as appealing, though. Uber's competitor is due to report on Wednesday. Besides earnings, investors will be looking particularly at the group's active rider growth. To compete with Uber, Lyft had to lower its prices, potentially affecting the top line. Earnings are expected at 15 cents per share, roughly a 50% increase on the same quarter last year. Revenue, meanwhile, is forecast at $1.14 billion. And also, we've got Disney earnings as well scheduled to report on Wednesday. The entertainment giant celebrated its 100th anniversary last month. Well, it's expected to post earnings of 71 cents per share on revenue of £21.37 billion. Well, this compares with earnings per share of 30 cents and revenue of $20.15 billion in the same quarter a year ago. It was this time last year that Bob Chapek was dismissed after a poor set of earnings, and he was replaced by Bob Iger, who initiated a $5.58 billion cost-cutting plan, eliminating 7,000 jobs. Well, Walt Disney made headlines last week when it announced it was willing to buy from Comcast the 33% of Hulu it doesn't own. In a statement published on Wednesday, Disney said it was ready to pay $8.6 billion for the stake, valuing Hulu at $27.5 billion. Negotiations will undoubtedly be harsh between the two groups. Comcast CEO recently said it thinks Hulu is worth more than double that. Well, this is the Disney price chart, the all-session stock on the IG platform, and it's currently up 2.14%. So the announcement was positively welcomed by the market, lifting the stock away from the multi-year low set last month. Well, moving on, and let's go to commodities and take a look at oil prices this morning. And let's first of all start with the Brent price chart. And you can see Brent is currently up 0.77%, trading around $85 a barrel. And US crude, otherwise known as WTI, also higher this morning, up 0.85%, trading around $81 a barrel at the moment. Well, last Friday, the US weekly oil rig count fell by a net margin of 7 to 618. US oil rigs fell by 8 to 496 this week, while gas rigs rose by 1. And then let's just move on as well to gold and take a look at the price this morning. Well, safe haven asset is down this morning by 0.45%. on the day. Well, the precious metal did finish lower last week, as well as the safe haven demand has weakened. However, a softer US dollar and retreat in bond yields could support the price. So we will be keeping it across that as well. But that's all we've got time for this morning with Early Morning Call. Thank you very much for watching, and do keep across our afternoon shows. We've got the look ahead. We've got Beat the Street as well ahead of the Wall Street Open at 1:30 this afternoon. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good day.